Due date, D-U-E date, not D-O-O-D-E-W, due date.
Don't do it, Wade. Don't
I'm
do
not
it.
doing it. I'm not doing it.
Wouldn't it just be D-U-E?
Don't
What
get
else
him
would it be?
started.
D-U-E.
Yeah, that's what it should be.
Don't get him
Exactly.
started. Don't get
get
him
him
started.
started.
Because the sequel is going to be called
No.
D-O-O Date, and the other sequel is going to be called Due Date.
was gonna
Wade was going
I thought
off
he was
before
doing
the
a
show.
duet, like
Here's the thing.
Okay.
Wade was pumped up with sugar before the show because he ate all the
Really?
cookies, and he winds up saying these horrible jokes about Due Date. So don't get him started.
We're moving on. We're moving on. Here's Due Date. Due Date, if you've seen the trailer, you've seen the commercials, you know exactly what it is. It's basically Planes, Trains, and Automobiles for a new generation. The difference here is, whereas in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, you had mismatched buddies on an unlikely road trip where they drive each other crazy because they can't get home for Thanksgiving. Now they're on a road trip because an incident occurs on the plane that gets both Zach Galifianakis and Robert Downey Jr. put onto the no-fly list. It's a crazy little post-9/11 incident, but bottom line, they're in Atlanta and they can't get to LA by any way other than by car. Plus, Robert Downey Jr., who plays an architect, he has put his wallet into his luggage. So he doesn't have his wallet, he doesn't have any money, he has no choice but to hitch a ride with Zach Galifianakis, who is a crazy, weird, very strange, aspiring actor who's carrying along a little French bulldog with him named Sonny. It's a guy, but it's named Sonny. S-U-N-N-Y, I guess. Anyway, so the road trip transpires much like it would in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, except the gags seem much more manufactured. Here's a little look.
We need to make a brief pit stop in Birmingham.
Actually, our next scheduled stop is Shreveport. That's where we rest for the
It's
night.
only 10 minutes away. It'll take 2
let's
seconds.
just see if we can make it there. Why do you make a pit stop in Birmingham, Alabama? We got to make time.
Because I left my glaucoma medication on the plane.
Wait. Your what? You mean your weed?
It's medical marijuana, Peter.
No, it's weed.
Why do you have to make everything so dark?
It's not dark. It's weed. And I'm saying I really don't want to stop and buy drugs. Is that okay?
You know what? I didn't want to play this card. Certainly not this early. But guess what? Guess who's got the Subaru Impreza? Me. Guess who's got all the money? Me. Guess who's got a winning personality? Me. What do you have? You have a nice hairline. Fine. You have a strong jaw. Fine. But I gotta tell you something, mister. Your personality needs some work. My God. Okay, it's like I've got a mind. Holy moly, it's like I'm traveling with a child.
Did you use the restroom?
Good point. I need to take a pee-pee.
Now, I actually enjoyed Due Date. I didn't love it. I certainly don't think it's any Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. In Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, you have two amazing comic actors in Steve Martin and John Candy, and direction and script by John Hughes. Really a classic because it was organic. It was about a situation that sort of engendered all of these things that would naturally happen along this kind of a road trip. Here, it feels like they thought up about a dozen, maybe 24 really funny moments without a story, and then kind of poured a contrived story in like a mold to sort of fill in the space around those moments. So the movie never really feels organic. They go out of their way for a lot of the jokes. But that being said, Robert Downey Jr. is a very talented actor. Zach Galifianakis does a great job basically playing himself, doing the same character that he always does, especially in The Hangover. And they somehow find a way of generating chemistry and funny moments even when the script and the story is trying very, very hard to make it work. Todd Phillips, perfectly serviceable director. He's a guy who walks in and tells people what to do, and the movie kind of takes care of itself. He's not a great director. He's not a real creative director, but he's a meat and potatoes guy. So I'd say it's fine for what it is.
No, I would agree. By the way, that's a great blurb for the DVD. It's fine for what it is, Wade
It's
Major.
fine for what it is.
Stupid for movies. Bam! I turned it around.
See,
Put it on you.
I'm not a hater.
He's a
not a
liker.
hater.
He's
I'm
a
a
liker.
liker.
Well, Todd Phillips.
I'm a meh-er.
He's a meh-er.
I'm a
Todd
meh-er.
Phillips is a director of these male bonding comedies, and what's funny is that
He's
he
done a
started
handful.
with stuff like Old School.
Yeah.
Right into the So it's Old School. You got College, Hangover. You've got Weddings, and now
Yeah.
he's on to Due Date, which skews the oldest because it's about Robert Downey Jr. having to get home to Los Angeles because his wife is about to give birth.
But that's
so I don't know what's next for Todd Phillips because you can't keep getting older and still get kids to see the movie. But that's Todd Phillips' thing, of these male bonding comedies. So on that basis, I liked it. What I liked the most about it is a lot of the humor was anti-PC. There was a scene where Robert Downey Jr. just takes this kid
He slugs a kid.
and he just slugs a kid in the stomach like it was unbelievable. With all the sound effect it's worth.
It's a
Right,
great moment.
and it's a great moment. And all the anti-PC humor, I think, is a little more acceptable now because people kind of used to
Yeah.
it from The Hangover and from
Well, it's
previous
cathartic.
comedies.
It's cathartic too. I mean, how many of us have wanted to just slug a nasty little bratty child in the gut, but we can't because we're adults,
Right.
and you can't abuse children.
And I think-
but you wanted to.
I know.
You know you want
and
to.
it was a great moment in the movie. It's
a great
But
moment.
where this movie will, as Wade says, inevitably be compared to Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and
or even Midnight Run on some level.
or even Midnight Run.
Yeah.
But the difference with those films, with Planes, Trains, and Midnight Run, is that you cared about the characters.
Mm-hmm.
You know, here you don't really care that much. I'm not sure you really meant to, but what makes the film more than just an opening weekend haha is if you care about the characters, because then maybe you'll see it again, you'll buy the DVD, you're invested in it. Here you're really not.
I think also part of the problem in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Steve Martin is he's a relatively likable guy who just kind of loses it every once in a while for reasons that we would. If we were that frustrated, we would lose it. And John Candy isn't psycho. He's just overly nice. The characters here, Robert Downey Jr. is really a hair trigger jerk. I mean, he just goes off at all the wrong times in ways that are completely inappropriate. You and I would not. I mean, we would go off on, in crazy ways, but not like he goes off here. And Zach Galifianakis is not accessible in any way whatsoever. He's fun to watch, but he's nuts. And so those two characters, a jerk and a crazy guy, do not endear themselves to you the way that, say, Steve Martin and John Candy did.
Right, and then as the movie goes on, they sort of start to reverse roles a little bit.
A little bit.
And then at the
Well,
end,
that's-
that's always the arcs of these things.
yeah.
And then, of course, they sort of start to reverse back.
Yeah.
And I was surprised at the ending. In Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, at the end,
Yeah.
when they get home and it's Thanksgiving, I mean, you were like crying. You couldn't
absolutely,
believe it.
absolutely. Because because John Candy there's that moment in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles where Steve Martin goes back, and John Candy's almost near tears because he's alone, and you realize in that moment that this is a human being. They try to do that here. Try to humanize Zach Galifianakis.
I
But
thought
the problem
ending,
is
he shanked the end.
they shanked it a little bit. But
Yeah.
but the problem is Zach Galifianakis is so odd. He's so peculiar. He has such weird proclivities. He's so out of his head. There's no way that you can humanize him by the end and make him something accessible. You just can't. He's maybe a slightly more likable crazy guy, but he's still crazy.
Right, and by the way, I was very surprised that Galifianakis and producer Mike and I and the guys, we've seen Galifianakis on stage
Yeah.
at Largo for years before he became famous. We've been rooting for this guy forever to make it big, and we're so happy for him. And
It's all about the beard.
it's all about the beard. And
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised that he actually gave I looked at him as an actor for the first time, not as a comedian who's
Yeah.
trying to muddle through an acting role. I looked at him kind of like an actor. I thought he did some good stuff in it.
You know what we need on this show?
More cookies.
Ferns.
More cookies. Huh?
Ferns.
Oh, Between Two Ferns is the greatest.
We need ferns.
God, I love that thing. Okay, so here's where we stand. Megamind, I liked it.
I refuse to see it.
Due Date, I liked it too. It's fine.
It's fine. It's
Right.
fine.